6 months after the transformation at the mining station, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Combined Fleet flagship, watching the approach to the Vorthek homeworld. The ship around him was a marvel that would have been impossible before Zarathus's sacrifice. Built through cooperation between human engineering, starborn energy manipulation, and transformed Vorthek biotechnology, the fleet spread out behind them told the story of how much the galaxy had changed. Human warships flew alongside vessels that had once been Vorthek destroyers, their hulls now flowing with patterns of light that expressed their crew's newfound understanding. Starborn ships moved among them like shepherds of crystal and starlight, their pilots having returned from centuries of hiding to join the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. "Contact from the surface," Torres announced from her position at the communications station. She wore the insignia of a full commander now, her promotion coming after her crucial role in establishing communication protocols with the transformed Vorthek. "The Hive Queens are ready to receive our delegation." Marcus nodded, checking his equipment one final time. The meeting he was about to attend would determine whether the transformation that had begun with a single act of mercy could spread to encompass the entire Vorthek species, or whether it would end in a war that would tear the galaxy apart. Morrison approached, his bulk now enhanced by a powered exoskeleton that combined human technology with starborn energy cells. He had volunteered to lead the security detail for the surface mission, a role that had evolved far beyond simple military protection. "Sir," the transformed Vorthak liaisons confirmed that the Hive Queens have agreed to the terms. No weapons, no shields, no technological advantages on either side. Just communication, and if it's a trap? Morrison's smile was grim. Then we find out just how far this transformation has really spread. The intelligence reports say half their fleet has either joined us or gone rogue. The other half is still loyal to the old ways. Marcus felt a familiar presence touch his mind. Not Zarathus exactly, but the echo of what the Starborn had become after transcending physical existence. The dragon's sacrifice had done more than transform enemy ships. It had created a network of consciousness that connected all who had been touched by the change. Through this network, Marcus could sense the transformed Vorthek throughout the galaxy, struggling to build new societies based on cooperation rather than dominance. He could feel the Starborn, no longer hiding but working openly to guide the transformation. And most surprisingly, he could sense humans on worlds throughout the frontier, discovering that they had an innate ability to connect with the network that Zarathus had created. "Ready for this, Commander?" The voice belonged to Kethver, the Vorthak officer who had first asked to learn about Hope. In the months since the transformation, he had become Marcus's closest ally among the reformed enemy forces. His insectoid features remained unchanged, but his movements now flowed with a grace that spoke of inner peace rather than military precision. "Ready as I'll ever be," Marcus replied. "Any last-minute intelligence on what we're walking into?" "The Hive Queens are divided," Kethver said, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of concern. 3 of the 5 have felt the touch of transformation. They understand that our species must evolve or face extinction. The other 2 remain committed to the old ways of conquest and consumption. A split decision, then? Should be interesting. Torres looked up from her station. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Harrison wants a final confirmation that you're committed to this course of action." Marcus wasn't surprised. The plan they were about to execute went against every principle of human military doctrine. Instead of attacking the Vorthek homeworld, they were going to attempt something that had never been tried in galactic history. They were going to offer an entire species the chance to transform itself. "Tell the Admiral that we're proceeding as planned," Marcus said. "And remind him that if this fails, humanity loses nothing we weren't going to lose anyway. If it succeeds, we gain something that could change the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy." The descent to the Vorthak homeworld was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. The planet below was a testament to the power of total unity of purpose. Vast hive cities stretched across continents, their organic architecture flowing in patterns that spoke of millions of minds working as one. But now those patterns were changing, some sections flowing with the new harmonies of transformation while others remained rigid in the old forms. The landing pad where they touched down was itself a work of art that had never existed before the transformation. What had once been a purely functional military installation now incorporated elements of beauty that served no practical purpose except to express the joy of existence. A delegation of Vorthak waited for them, and Marcus could immediately sense the division among them. 3 of the figures moved with the flowing grace of transformation, their compound eyes bright with curiosity and wonder. The other 2 maintained the rigid posture of the old military hierarchy, their movements speaking of barely contained aggression. The largest of the transformed Vorthak stepped forward. Through the network that connected all changed beings, Marcus felt her identity flow through his consciousness. Hive Queen Zerishtal, ruler of the northern continents, architect of the greatest military victories in Vorthak history, and now the leading advocate for species-wide transformation. Human Marcus Jung, she said, her voice carrying harmonic frequencies that conveyed meaning beyond simple words. We welcome you to the heart of the swarm. Your actions have created possibilities that our species thought extinct for millennia. One of the unchanged queens moved forward with sharp, aggressive gestures. Zerishtal speaks for herself alone. I am Hive Queen Vexmari, and I do not welcome those who have poisoned our people's minds with false promises of weakness. Marcus felt tension ripple through the assembled delegates. The unchanged Vorthak were heavily outnumbered by those who had embraced transformation, but their military bearing suggested they were far from defeated. Your Majesty, Marcus said, addressing Vexmari directly, we haven't come to make your people weak. We've come to offer them strength of a kind they've never known. Strength? Vexmari's mandibles clicked in what Marcus recognized as aggressive amusement. You offer the dissolution of everything that has made the swarm mighty? Unity of purpose, clarity of goal, the willingness to do what must be done for survival. We offer the same things, Morrison interjected, his voice calm despite the weapons trained on them by the unchanged Vorthak guards, just with a different understanding of what survival really means. Zerishtal gestured for the delegation to follow her deeper into the hive complex. As they walked, Marcus saw the evidence of transformation everywhere. Corridors that had once been purely functional now incorporated patterns of beauty. Worker drones that had once moved with mechanical precision now showed signs of individual personality. Most remarkably, juvenile Vorthak could be seen playing, something that had been forbidden under the old regime's emphasis on perfect efficiency. This is what you call strength? Vexmari demanded, gesturing at a group of young Vorthak who were creating art from crystalline formations. Waste of resources, inefficient allocation of labor, weakness disguised as enlightenment. No, said a new voice, and everyone turned to see a figure that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was clearly Vorthak, but transformed in ways that went beyond what he had seen before. The being's carapace flowed with patterns of light, its movements expressing a grace that seemed to bend space itself around its presence. Speaker Kithrin, Zerishtal said with deep respect. The humans have arrived? Marcus realized he was looking at something unprecedented. A Vorthak who had been so thoroughly transformed that they had begun to approach the same transcendent state that the Starborn achieved after physical death. Vexmari speaks of strength through unity, Kithrin said, their voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to sing, but she mistakes uniformity for unity. True strength comes not from making all voices the same, but from allowing them to sing in harmony. Philosophy, Vexmari spat. The swarm conquered half the galaxy through practical action, not beautiful words. And where did that conquest lead? Kithrin asked gently. To a galaxy of ruins and lifeless worlds. To a species so focused on consumption that it forgot the meaning of creation. To isolation so complete that we became incapable of growth. Marcus felt the moment when the conversation reached its crucial point. Everything that had led to this moment, from Zarathus's sacrifice to the transformation of enemy fleets, came down to the next few minutes. "Your Majesties," he said, stepping forward, "may I propose a demonstration?" Vexmari's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What kind of demonstration?" "A test of strength. Your way against ours." The unchanged queen's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "You would challenge the swarm to combat? Even now, when you stand in the heart of our power?" "Not combat," Marcus said. "Creation." He gestured to Torres, who activated a portable holographic projector. The display showed a dead world on the galactic rim, its surface scarred by ancient warfare. This planet died in the war between the first Vorthak ships materialized from hyperspace like angry wasps emerging from a disturbed nest. Marcus counted at least 30 vessels through the mining station's sensors, ranging from scout ships to massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons designed to crack planetary shields. "Well, this is just fantastic," Morrison muttered, checking his rifle's power cell for the third time. 3 humans and 1 very large dragon against an entire Vorthak battle fleet. Zarathus moved to the chamber's viewing port, his massive form graceful despite his size. "Not just 1 dragon, brave Morrison. Watch." The space around the mining station began to shimmer, and suddenly ships appeared where moments before there had been empty void. Not Vorthak vessels, but sleek craft that seemed to be carved from living crystal and starlight. They moved with fluid grace that no artificial intelligence could match, their hulls pulsing with the same energy Marcus had seen Zarathus command. "Your people," Torres breathed, her scanner readings going wild. "How many?" 12 of my kindred managed to reach this system," Zarathus replied, his mental voice carrying notes of joy and grief. "So few, yet more than I had dared hope. We had scattered far across the galaxy to avoid detection. Some have traveled for months to answer my call." Marcus watched through the station's external cameras as the 2 fleets faced each other. The Vorthak ships formed their traditional attack formation, a sphere of overlapping fire zones that had crushed countless civilizations. The starborn vessels simply hung in space, beautiful and alien and somehow patient. "Commander Chun," Zarathus said, turning away from the viewport, "your species has shown mine a great kindness. We would offer you a choice now. My ship is still functional in the station's main docking bay. You could flee while we engage the swarm." "That's not happening," Marcus replied without hesitation. "We came here together. We fight together." Torres nodded agreement. "Besides, sir, our ship is back at the edge of the system. Even if we wanted to run, we're stuck here until this is over." Zarathus's massive head tilted slightly, studying the 3 humans. "You realize that what happens next will likely determine the course of this war? If we fall here, the Vorthak will learn that Starborn still live, and they will hunt us with even greater fervor." "And if you win?" Morrison asked. "If we win, the galaxy learns that the swarm can bleed." There was something ancient and terrible in Zarathus's mental voice. "Either way, there is no going back." The Vorthak fleet opened fire first, as they always did. Streams of plasma and antimatter warheads filled the space around the mining station. But where the weapons should have struck the starborn ships, they passed through empty space. The crystal vessels had simply stopped existing in normal spacetime. "Phase shifting," Torres said, her eyes wide as she studied the sensor readings. "They're moving between dimensions." Zarathus nodded approvingly. "Your people have fine technical minds." "Yes, we sail between the layers of reality itself. It is how we traveled between stars before your species developed hyperspace technology." The starborn ships reappeared suddenly, scattered throughout the Vorthak formation. What followed wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. It was an execution. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the crystal vessels, but these weren't simple weapon discharges. Marcus watched in awe as Vorthak ships began to transform, their hulls reshaping themselves as if the very atoms were being rewritten. Weapon systems became gardens of crystalline growth. Engine systems turned to art sculptures of impossible beauty. "You're not destroying them," Marcus realized. "You're changing them." Matter and energy are simply expressions of universal harmony, Zarathus explained. The Vorthic have forgotten this truth in their hunger for conquest. We remind them. But the Vorthic weren't defenseless. As their initial formation crumbled, they adapted with the speed that had made them the galaxy's most feared predators. New weapons emerged from hidden compartments, devices that seemed designed specifically to combat the starborn abilities. A beam of sickly yellow energy struck one of the crystal ships, and Marcus felt Zarathus's anguish as the vessel's phase-shifting abilities failed. The ship materialized fully in normal space, vulnerable now to conventional weapons. "Harvester technology," Zarathus snarled. "They've weaponized the same systems they used to imprison us." The battle's tempo changed immediately. What had been an elegant display of superior technology became a desperate struggle. The Vorthak concentrated their new weapons on individual starborn ships, forcing them into normal space where they could be overwhelmed by conventional firepower. Through the mental link, Marcus felt Zarathus reaching out to his people, coordinating their response. But there were only 12 starborn ships against 30 Vorthak vessels, and the enemy had learned too much during their centuries of holding starborn prisoners. "They're going to lose," Torres said quietly, watching another crystal ship forced into normal space. The Vorthak adapted too quickly. Marcus felt something change in Zarathus's presence. A decision being made. A choice that carried the weight of ages. "Not if I give them what they truly want," the dragon said. Before any of the humans could react, Zarathus was moving. His massive form flowed through the mining station with impossible speed, heading for the main docking bay where his ship waited. Marcus and his team raced after him, but the Starborn moved with purpose that seemed to bend space itself. "Zarathus, wait!" Marcus called through the mental link. "What are you planning?" "The Vorthak have always sought to capture Starborn alive," came the reply. "Our life energy is too valuable to waste in death. They will not destroy my ship if they believe they can reclaim their prize." Marcus understood with a horrible clarity. "You're going to surrender yourself. I am going to give them exactly what they expect. And in doing so, I will teach them the true cost of enslaving the Starborn." They reached the docking bay just as Zarathus's ship came alive. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, seeming to be grown rather than built, its hull pulsing with organic rhythms. The dragon paused at the boarding ramp. "Commander Chun, your people have proven that courage is not limited to the Starborn. When the swarm inevitably comes to your worlds in greater numbers, remember what you have learned here. Resistance is not about victory. It is about making your enemies pay such a price that they question whether conquest is worth the cost." "There has to be another way," Marcus protested. "Perhaps. But not today." Zarathus began moving up the ramp, then paused. "The mental link we share will not be broken by distance. When the time comes, you will know what to do." The ship launched before Marcus could respond, accelerating toward the Vorthak fleet with the fluid grace of its pilot. Immediately, the enemy formation shifted. Several ships moved to intercept while others continued their assault on the remaining Starborn vessels. Through the station's sensors, Marcus watched the Vorthak surround Zarathus's ship. Harvester beams reached out like grasping claws, designed to disable rather than destroy. The dragon could have phase-shifted away, could have used any number of abilities to escape. Instead, he allowed the beams to strike home. Marcus felt the moment when the harvester technology took hold, pulling Zarathus's ship into normal space and beginning the process of draining his energy. Through their mental link, he experienced an echo of the pain and violation that came with the Vorthak technology, but he also felt something else, anticipation, and beneath that, a rage that had been building for 3 centuries. "Sir," Torres said urgently, "the remaining Starborn ships are withdrawing. They're leaving him." "No," Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. "They're getting clear." Zarathus's ship was pulled into the docking bay of the largest Vorthak dreadnought, and Marcus felt the dragon's satisfaction as the enemy did exactly what he had predicted. They began to set up containment systems, Preparing to once again imprison one of the Starborn, through the mental link, Marcus felt Zarathus gathering his strength. Not just his own power, but something more. Energy that had been building in the quantum structure of space itself, accumulating wherever Starborn had been held captive over the centuries. They think they understand our power. Zarathus's mental voice was calm now, centered. They see us reshape matter and think it is technology. They see us phase between dimensions and think it is merely advanced physics. They do not understand that we are not separate from the universe. We are expressions of its fundamental nature. The Vorthic Dreadnought sensors detected the energy buildup too late. Alarms began sounding across their fleet as readings climbed toward levels that shouldn't be possible. Inside the ship, Marcus felt Zarathus release all restraints on his power. What happened next redefined Marcus's understanding of what was possible in the universe. The Dreadnought didn't explode. It transformed. In the space of heartbeats, a vessel of war became something that belonged in the dreams of artists and poets. Weapon systems became instruments of music that played harmonies across the electromagnetic spectrum. Armor plating flowed into gardens of crystalline beauty. The ship's computer systems evolved into something approaching consciousness, suddenly aware of the violence they had been used to commit. But the transformation didn't stop with the ship. It spread like a wave through the quantum foam that connected all matter, reaching out to touch every Vorthak. Commander Marcus Chen pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the abandoned mining station, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 3 days from this sector, but when his reconnaissance ship arrived, all they found was silence and the twisted remains of what looked like a battlefield. The Kepler Mining Consortium had marked this station as destroyed 6 months ago during the Vorthak invasion. No survivors reported. No salvage team sent. Just another casualty in humanity's ongoing war against the insectoid aliens who seemed bent on claiming every habitable world in the galaxy. Marcus checked his rifle's power cell and motioned to his team. Sergeant Kim Torres nodded from across the corridor, her dark eyes alert behind her helmet visor. Behind her, Corporal Jake Morrison kept watch on their rear, his massive frame barely fitting through the station's narrow passages. "Motion sensors are picking up something big in the lower levels," Torres whispered through the comm. "Really big, sir." The station's emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows as they descended through maintenance shafts. Whatever had happened here, the Vorthak had left in a hurry. Scattered equipment and broken weapons told a story of desperate fighting, but there were no bodies. The aliens always collected their dead, but they usually left human corpses as warnings. As they reached sublevel 5, a sound echoed through the corridors that made Marcus's blood freeze. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't human. It was something between a roar and a scream, filled with pain and rage that seemed to shake the very walls. "What the hell was that?" Morrison's voice cracked slightly. Marcus held up his hand for silence. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by the grinding of metal and what sounded like chains. Heavy chains. They moved carefully through the mining level, past enormous excavation equipment and conveyor systems designed to process rare minerals. The sound grew louder with each step, until they reached a massive chamber that had once housed the station's primary mining operation. What they found there would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by strange Vorthak technology and energy barriers, was a creature that defied every law of physics Marcus thought he knew. It stood nearly 20 feet tall, with scales that seemed to absorb and reflect light like liquid metal. 6 powerful limbs ended in claws that could easily tear through starship hull plating. Its head was elongated and elegant, with eyes that burned like twin stars, but what captured Marcus's attention weren't the creature's magnificent features. It was the restraints, massive chains forged from some unknown metal wrapped around the creature's limbs and neck. Energy collars pulsed with sickly green light, sending visible waves of pain through its body every few seconds. Tubes and cables connected to various parts of its anatomy, drawing some kind of fluid into collection tanks. "My God," Torres breathed. "They're farming it." The creature's star-bright eyes fixed on the humans, and Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before. Not communication exactly, but a presence in his mind, ancient, proud, and suffering beyond comprehension. Morrison raised his weapon instinctively, but Marcus grabbed his arm. "Stand down. Sir, that thing could kill us all without breaking a sweat." "Look at it, Corporal." "Really look." Marcus stepped closer to the energy barrier, studying the restraints and the Vorthak equipment. "This isn't a weapon. It's a prisoner." The presence in his mind grew stronger, and suddenly Marcus understood. Images flashed through his consciousness. A proud species soaring between stars on wings of pure energy. A homeworld of crystal spires and floating cities. And then the Vorthak swarming like locusts, capturing and enslaving his people for their unique abilities. The creature had been imprisoned for over 3 centuries. "The beacon," Torres said suddenly. "Sir, I don't think it was from the mining station. I think it was from ... him." Marcus nodded slowly. The creature had somehow managed to activate an emergency beacon, hoping against hope that someone would come. Someone who might help, but the Vorthak technology was beyond anything humanity had encountered. Energy barriers that could contain something this powerful, restraints that seemed to draw their strength from the creature's own life force. Even if they could shut down the system, there was no guarantee the creature wouldn't turn on them the moment it was free. Marcus made a decision that went against every tactical manual he'd ever studied. He stepped closer to the barrier and placed his hand against the energy field. Pain shot up his arm, but he held on, trying to project his intentions through the strange mental connection. The creature's eyes widened, and Marcus felt its surprise. In 300 years of captivity, no being had ever tried to communicate with it as an equal. The Vorthak saw it only as a resource to be exploited. But this small human was different. "Torres, Morrison, start mapping the power conduits. Find me a way to shut this thing down." "Sir, with respect, are you completely insane?" Morrison asked. "Probably." Marcus studied the creature's restraints more carefully. "But I've got a feeling about this. The Vorthak don't just capture random animals. They're strategic. They only take what they can use." "Use for what?" Torres was already working on a nearby control panel, her technical expertise proving invaluable. "Think about it. What's the one thing humanity has that the Vorthak don't? What's kept us in this war when every other species has either joined them or been wiped out?" Torres paused in her work. "Our refusal to surrender." "Exactly. Our stubborn human nature. We never know when we're beaten." Marcus felt another wave of communication from the creature, this time tinged with something that might have been hope. "But what if we're not the only species with that trait?" Morrison was studying the energy readings on his scanner. "Sir, the power output from this containment system is enormous. Whatever this thing can do, the Vorthak consider it a major threat, which is exactly why we're going to set it free." The next hour was spent in careful analysis of the Vorthak technology. Torres worked with the skill that had made her humanity's premier xenotechnology specialist, tracing power flows and identifying critical systems. The creature watched silently, occasionally providing guidance through the strange mental link it had established with Marcus. "I think I've got it," Torres announced finally. "The entire system runs through a central core processor. If I can overload it, the whole thing should shut down." "But sir, ... but?" "The energy feedback will probably destroy half this level of the station. And there's no guarantee the restraints won't lock permanently if the system fails." Marcus looked up at the creature, meeting those burning, star-bright eyes. In his mind, he felt a sense of acceptance. The being had endured 3 centuries of torture. If this was its chance for freedom, it was willing to risk death. "Do it." Torres's fingers flew over the alien controls, bypassing safety systems and rerouting power flows. Warning lights began flashing throughout the chamber as energy levels climbed toward critical. 30 seconds, she announced. Marcus stepped back from the barrier, his rifle lowered but ready. He had no idea what would happen when the creature was freed. For all he knew, it might incinerate them all in its first moment of freedom. 15 seconds. The creature's eyes closed. and Marcus felt its thoughts turn inward, gathering strength that had been suppressed for centuries. 10 seconds. Sir, we should take cover. No, we stay. Marcus stood his ground, meeting the creature's gaze as its eyes opened again. We made a promise. The Vorthek containment system exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Energy barriers collapsed, chains shattered like glass, and suddenly the creature was free. For a moment, it simply stood there, as if unable to believe its captivity had truly ended. Then it raised its magnificent head and roared, a sound of pure triumph that shook dust from the chamber ceiling. Marcus felt the mental connection strengthen, and suddenly he understood. The creature wasn't just expressing joy at its freedom. It was calling to others of its kind, sending a signal across the galaxy that one of their number lived and was free, and from the depths of space, impossibly distant but unmistakably real, came answering calls. The creature looked down at Marcus and his team, and for the first time in 300 years, it spoke in a voice that resonated like distant thunder. I am Zarathus of the Starborn, last guardian of the crystal reaches. You have given me back my life, small warriors. I will not forget this debt. Marcus stepped forward, his weapon still lowered. Commander Marcus Chun, Terran Defense Force, we're fighting the Vorthek too. Have been for 20 years? 20 years? Zarathus's mental presence carried overtones of surprise and respect. You are a young species, yet you have resisted the swarm for 20 rotations? Impressive. We're stubborn, Marcus replied with a slight smile. Yes, I see this in your minds. Stubborn and brave and foolish. The dragon's head tilted slightly. The Vorthek believe they have eliminated my people. They are wrong. We have hidden, scattered, waiting for a sign that resistance was still possible. Torres stepped forward. How many of your people survive? Thousands? Perhaps tens of thousands, scattered across the galaxy in hidden refuges. But we have waited too long in hiding. We had forgotten how to fight as one. Morrison, ever practical, asked the question that was on all their minds. What can you do against the Vorthek? Zaret.